my fiancé proposed to my sister. Everyone expected me to make a scene, even my parents advised me to yield to my elder sister. But to their surprise, I calmly offered my blessings and announced my own engagement to Caleb Cavendish, the heir of a wealthy aristocratic family. Sorry to disappoint. The tragic heroine act ends here. I'm switching to an empowering revenge storyline now. Today was supposed to be my engagement party with Christopher. But Christopher was nowhere to be found, his phone was unreachable, and even his parents couldn't locate him. Just as the guests began murmuring among themselves at the venue, I took the microphone from the attendant, leisurely picked up a wine glass from the table, and raised it slightly. My apologies, everyone. I suppose my fiancé must have urgent matters to attend to. Before I could finish speaking, the other key figure of today's event, Christopher, appeared at the venue entrance hand in hand with my biological sister Hazel, loudly interrupting me. Apologies indeed. He released Hazel's hand, looked down at her affectionately as he pulled her into his embrace, and stepped toward me one slow pace at a time before extending his hand toward me. Sorry for the trouble. I set down my wine glass, handed the microphone to him, and instinctively took a step back. Christopher nodded at me, glanced around, and said apologetically, everyone, and Arya. I'm truly sorry. My engagement with Arya will be cancelled. But today, I want everyone present to bear witness. I, Christopher, have only ever wanted to marry one woman, and that is her. As he spoke, Christopher turned to Hazel, knelt down on one knee, and said with utmost sincerity, Hazel, will you marry me? Hazel didn't respond. She looked up at me, then lowered her gaze to Christopher, tears streaming down her face as if her heart were in extreme torment. After all, she had openly hijacked her younger sister's engagement banquet. Christopher clearly noticed her inner turmoil and silently held her hand to offer encouragement. The guests, who had already been thinning out and preparing to leave, turned back to watch the spectacle. Gradually, hushed murmurs and discussions began to surface. Haven't their family's alliance through marriage been publicly announced for years? Why did they change the bride today? Hazel rarely appears in public, who knew she'd make such a stunning debut? I heard that Christopher used to be very fond of Arya. Doesn't this mean Hazel stole her sister's fiancé? Won't Arya make a scene? Hard to say, but since they're not married yet, what's the big deal? Indeed, no matter the occasion or social status, gossip seems to be humanity's innate talent. Smiling faintly, I adopted my most sincere expression and urged Hazel, sister, why hesitate? Hurry and say yes. But to my surprise, Hazel's tears flowed even more fiercely upon hearing this. She lowered her head, shaking it slightly, and pressed her lips together without saying a word. Christopher, who had been half kneeling, finally couldn't hold back anymore. He turned his head and snarled at me in a low voice, Arya, stop tormenting Hazel. If you have any grievances, take them out on me. She's innocent. Huh? What does this have to do with me? I tried to hold back, but couldn't resist muttering, are you out of your mind? The atmosphere in the banquet hall froze for a moment. Seeing this, my friends quickly gathered around, worried that I might cause trouble, and tried to escort me out of the venue. Arya, don't be sad. We'll talk about this later. Arya, are you okay? Let me take you downstairs to rest. Even my parents came over to pat my shoulder and persuade me, your sister has always given way to you since childhood. She only wants Christopher this once. Be sensible and let her have this. So I don't even need to say anything, you've all said it for me. Pushing away the hands grasping at me, I sighed, all right, you've all said enough. Now it's my turn to speak. I asked the attendant for another microphone and pushed past these people. Not far away, Hazel was crouched in Christopher's arms, sobbing softly. Under the bewildered gazes of the crowd, I took 2 steps forward. The speakers arranged around the venue carried my every word clearly, with all sincerity, I wish my sister and Christopher a happy ending together. Hearing my voice, Hazel lifted her head from Christopher's embrace, her eyes red and on the verge of tears again, Arya. Too lazy to listen to her act, I cleared my throat and continued, at the same time, I sincerely invite everyone. As the words fell, the banquet hall doors swung open, and someone strode in leisurely from the entrance. The crowd parted ways, gasps rising in waves. Isn't that Caleb Cavendish? What's he doing here? My God, is Caleb here to watch the show too? I walked over, linking arms with the newcomer, and smiled. I invite you all to attend Caleb's and my engagement banquet on the 21st of next month. Now, no one dared to speak. Unlike our families, ordinary wealthy clans living off ancestral fortunes, Caleb's family had been in politics for generations, with towering achievements. And then came Caleb. At 20, he plunged into business with ruthless tactics, seizing control of over half the economic lifelines of City A in just 5 years. A true young tycoon, the pinnacle of elite aristocracy. No one present dared offend this crown prince to his face. Except for my dear sister who always has my best interests at heart. Hazel was helped up by Christopher, her face full of disbelief. Arya, don't talk nonsense. Caleb isn't someone we can joke about. I tilted my head, confused. Joke? What joke? Christopher wrapped an arm around her shoulder, shielding her. Arya, I was wrong today. You can ask for any compensation you want, but you shouldn't provoke Caleb. My father, as if reacting belatedly, squeezed through the crowd with a worried expression and reached for me. Arya. Don't be foolish. Do you know who this is? I hadn't managed to reply yet. Caleb took 2 steps back with me. My father followed closely, still trying to pull me while apologizing. Caleb, my youngest daughter didn't mean any offense, she. Uncle, you seem to have misunderstood something. Caleb frowned slightly, his expression displeased. I held the microphone up to him. He lowered his head slightly and spoke calmly. Since Arya has invited everyone, I warmly welcome you all to attend. On the 21st of next month, our engagement banquet. After a pause, he took the microphone and added, by the way, may Hazel and Christopher, the destined lovers, finally unite. Then he released the microphone, letting it fall freely and hit the ground with a loud crash. Combined with his previous words, the sound felt like a hammer striking in agreement, hitting everyone's hearts. Thud, the room fell silent for a moment before erupting into an uproar. The younger gentlemen and ladies around were buzzing with comments. I thought Arya was so pitiful, but something seems off here? It feels like Christopher changed his fiancé on a whim, but Arya was well prepared all along. The murmurs around them were loud enough to reach Caleb's ears. He thoroughly enjoyed the attention, tilting his head slightly to cast an appreciative glance at the young masters and misses who had spoken. Yaya nodded in approval. Following her gaze, I noticed those individuals visibly perking up even more. What's with this obedient puppy act? Weren't you all supposed to be high society elites? Helpless, I raised my hand and patted Caleb who was preening like a peacock. Dial it down a notch. The next day, breaking news exploded across City A's headlines. With Caleb's permission, news of our engagement spread throughout the entire city. On my phone, messages from my father had been piling up since yesterday afternoon. They kept asking how I got involved with Caleb. Asking if I wanted to harm them, as if Caleb were someone I could afford to provoke. Then, after seeing this morning's headlines, his sharp accusations turned into, Arya, you must behave well and keep Caleb happy. Our family's future now entirely depends on you. Depends on me? I tapped my finger on the last line of the message and found it laughable. My father had no ability to manage the company, and for years we'd basically relied on the Christopher family's support. So for over 2 decades, our family's future had rested entirely on Christopher's shoulders. That's also why, when they discovered Christopher was entangled with Hazel, they discarded me without hesitation. These parents of mine have always favored my frail, sickly older sister, eagerly wanting to secure a good marriage for her. It's just that back then, Christopher insisted on chasing after me, so they couldn't force a switch. Now that Christopher and my sister have gotten together on their own, they've finally gotten their wish. Just as I was thinking this, Caleb came over with a tray of water and sat beside me. What's on your mind? I picked up a green grape and sighed sadly. Biased parents, a sick sister, a fickle fiancé, and poor, innocent me. Holding the green grape, my hand was guided by Caleb to his lips. He mimicked my tone and let out a faint sigh. Ah, my fiancé almost got bullied. I almost forgot, this guy who snatched my fruit knows quite a bit about me. My poor little me act failed. My dad told me to win you over. I picked another green grape and held it to his lips. Here, let me try to win you over. Caleb accepted it calmly and replied lazily, am I such a golden bachelor that they'd wait a few days for me? Since Caleb and I are getting engaged, it's only natural for both sides to arrange a time to meet the parents. Besides, my dad finally has the chance to cozy up to Caleb, they wouldn't miss this opportunity to milk some benefits. The only question is how long they can resist disturbing such a big fish. I kept feeding the speculation, guessing, a week, maybe. Caleb turned his head slightly and said with certainty, a day. The next day, Caleb was cornered by my parents in the living room for small talk, while I went back to my room to pack my things, preparing to move in with him. The door was pushed open as Hazel walked in holding a cup of coffee, her smile warm. Arya, I ground this coffee myself, brought it for you to try. My gaze flickered to the uneven love bites on her collarbone. Hazel couldn't even be bothered to conceal them now. I really admire you, sis. Hazel paused mid-step just as she was about to enter, still smiling. What's wrong? Setting down the clothes in my hands, I picked up the phone from the desk, powered it off in front of her, and tossed it onto the bed. Take out your phone. Hazel hesitated, You're. I blinked and gave her a choice, shut it down or step out and close the door. Moments later, the recording phone from Hazel's bag was taken out and powered off. The door was also closed behind her. Hazel's smile vanished as she said coldly, I've been curious since yesterday how you managed to hook Caleb. Now I see you do have some tricks up your sleeve. I shrugged my hands, these petty tricks are nothing compared to yours. Everyone else in this household, especially our parents, has treated Hazel, who was born prematurely, like fragile porcelain since childhood. She wasn't allowed to run or jump, couldn't go outside to encounter any dangers, and was kept cooped up at home for years. Yet this carefully nurtured doll grew a heart of blackened steel. After turning 5, she began targeting me with particular malice, trying to take from me what she believed was rightfully hers. Things like our parents' special affection, the approval of teachers and relatives, and even my fiancé Christopher. Her methods included but weren't limited to feigning illness, playing the victim, and smearing my reputation. She did indeed take a lot from me through these means. Though I never considered those things significant, she always made a grand show of victory. Perhaps she prided herself on being remarkably successful. Thinking of this, I silently curled my lips into a smile. Hazel didn't respond to my earlier remark. Instead, she leisurely brought the coffee to her lips for a sip. I spent over 10 minutes carefully grinding this. It's quite good, what a shame you won't try it. I echoed, yes, what a shame. The room fell silent for a few seconds. She set down her coffee, you can't marry Caleb. Why not? You're not good enough for him. I nodded and retorted, oh? And you are? Hazel's eyes flickered with panic upon being exposed. Yet even now, she still sought to conceal her ulterior motives, admonishing me with feigned righteousness. Caleb's background is beyond your reach. I'm saying this for your own good. How classically cliched, this for your own good routine. I deliberately sat on the edge of the bed and pretended to ponder for a few seconds. Is it that I'm unworthy, or that you want to keep him for yourself? I've already given you Christopher, isn't that enough? Hazel reflexively responded, Christopher and I share true love. She paused, sensing something amiss. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she stammered, you mean, give it to me? Oh, my foolish elder sister. Smiling, I raised a finger and pretended to count, didn't you claim your love was genuine? Let me guess, when exactly did this genuine love begin? Was it at the engagement party 2 days ago? Or during all those secret rendezvous over the years? Or perhaps, the night after our college entrance exams ended? Thud, crash, the sound of something heavy falling and ceramic shattering startled the three people downstairs. Hearing the commotion, they rushed upstairs. Hazel was lying weakly on the floor of my room, clutching her stomach and softly whimpering in pain. Her white loungewear was stained with coffee spilled across the chest, the shattered cup lying beside her. I sat facing her, watching coldly. This scene pierced our mother's heart. Anxious and worried, she helped Hazel up. What happened? What's going on? Hazel, what's wrong? Hazel weakly opened her eyes, tears streaming uncontrollably down her face. It hurts so much. Mom. Please don't blame Aria. I just lost my balance. It wasn't her pushing me. Our mother, heartbroken for her eldest daughter, looked up with fury twisting her face. This woman who always cared so much about maintaining her dignified lady's composure didn't even bother about the coffee stains now smeared on her hands as she pointed accusingly straight at me. Aria. She's your own sister. And she's carrying your own nephew in her womb. How dare you push her? Growing more agitated by the second, she nearly stood up to slap me, but her legs gave way and she collapsed onto Hazel instead. Hazel's crying abruptly stopped. I pressed my lips together to suppress a laugh. People always find ways to look busy when embarrassed. Mom quickly scrambled off, tears streaming down her face as she cradled Hazel and shrieked at my father, "What are you standing there for? Call a doctor. This is a sin, an absolute sin." Snapped out of his daze, my father panicked and rushed downstairs to make the call. Caleb stood firmly in the doorway, blocking his path with unnervingly calm detachment. "Uncle, don't act rashly." My father froze, both anxious and fearful. "Caleb, what are you doing?" Caleb remained silent, tilting his chin toward my direction. Everyone in the room turned to look at me. I slowly rose from my chair and began clapping softly. You know what? The best performance my sister has given all these years was this very act. What a pity it has to end today. My mother couldn't comprehend my intentions. Worried about Hazel, she shouted at me furiously, her voice nearly cracking. "What nonsense are you spouting? Why won't you let your father call a doctor? Do you want to kill your sister and that unborn child?" I frowned, covering my ears with my hands as my gaze sought Caleb's help. He raised his hand and knocked on the door with his knuckles, signaling her to quiet down. "Auntie, rest assured, in this house, you're not the one most worried about Hazel getting hurt." "What?" Caleb fell silent, so I took over. "If anything happens to Hazel in my room, I'd be ruining my entire life along with it. I'm not that self-sacrificing." Mom looked down at the pitiful state of Hazel in her arms, then back at me. Confused, she asked, "What are you trying to do?" I picked up the two phones from the bed, then walked to the desk and retrieved Caleb's phone hidden behind the books. I even waved the screen that was currently recording in their direction. Hazel's sobbing came to an abrupt halt, and I caught the unmistakable flicker of panic and terror in her eyes. At that moment, our parents also held their breath, sensing something amiss. My room had never been quieter than it was now. Without keeping them in suspense, I turned on the projector in the room and connected it to Caleb's phone. I played the recently saved video from the beginning. The first few minutes of the video showed only me folding clothes alone in the room. Then Hazel entered with a cup of coffee. A few minutes later, I asked Hazel, "Let me guess, where did you and Christopher truly begin falling in love? At the engagement party 2 days ago? During all those secret rendezvous over the years? Or, that night right after the college entrance exams?" Hazel's face instantly turned pale. She strode 2 steps closer to me, teeth clenched. "What nonsense are you spouting?" From the video, my reply rang out crystal clear, "Room 107, 10th floor of the hotel." "That security footage of you two tearing at each other's clothes and making out desperately in the hallway? I was the one who deleted it for you." Upon hearing this, Hazel flipped her wrist and deliberately spilled coffee over herself. Her voice dripped ice and seethed with jealousy. "So what? You owed me all this anyway." Without even blinking, she smashed the coffee cup onto the floor with force, deftly avoiding the shards before dramatically collapsing to the ground while clutching her stomach with a theatrical gasp. The commotion drew everyone upstairs to open the door. The final seconds of the video showed me walking toward the camera. The recording ended there, leaving the room in complete silence. Mom's face froze mid-expression of deep concern, disbelief coloring her voice. "Hazel, you? Why would you do this?" Dad's face flushed crimson. A self-proclaimed gentleman who'd never raised his voice in his life, he couldn't help but shout at Hazel in outrage, "What on earth are you doing?" Tears still streaming down her face, Hazel shook her head frantically and grabbed Mom's hand in a white-knuckled grip. "It's not me, I only..." "Stop, stop, stop." I clapped my hands to interrupt their performance. "I'm just presenting the facts to everyone here, not interested in hearing what comes next. Caleb and I have other matters to attend to, so we'll take our leave now." As if awakened by my words, Hazel stood up, ignoring the shards of glass at her feet as she rushed to grab me. "Arya, you did this on purpose. You want to ruin me, to take everything from me. You bitch, you're just..." But faster than her movement was our mother, who had also risen, gripping Hazel's arm tightly. Slap, Hazel froze in place, her pupils filled with shock and disbelief. Mother withdrew her hand, looking sorrowfully at the palm print slowly emerging on Hazel's cheek as she murmured softly, "How could you be like this? How did you become this way? That's your own sister." Hazel was stunned, slowly raising her hand to cover her face as tears streamed down while staring at her mother, instinctively resorting to her usual tactic of playing the victim. "You actually hit me for her? Mom, have you forgotten how many times I've endured her over the years? I've given her everything. I just want a Christopher, what's so wrong about that?" Her mother froze for a moment, her grip on Hazel's hand trembling slightly. "I just saw what you did earlier." Hazel shook her off and sneered, "Saw what I did? I was just protecting my love in my own way. And you, Mom? Are you going to blindly take Arya's side without even understanding the situation?" Mom shook her head, wanting to say something. I couldn't help interrupting. All right, sis is always right, but I just have one question." Everyone in the room turned to look at me. I locked eyes with Hazel. "This is your first time getting hit, isn't it? How does it feel?" Visibly, Hazel's face turned from pale to livid, the bright red slap mark on her cheek making the whole scene utterly ridiculous. I burst out laughing. "No words? That's fine. We've seen enough of this drama, time for us to leave." The remaining mess was theirs to deal with. I'd lost all interest in watching. Hazel was ordered back to her room by Dad. Both he and Mom saw Caleb and me out with awkward expressions. Just before getting in the car, Mom held onto the doorframe and tugged at my sleeve. "Arya." I stayed silent. Caleb narrowed his eyes and yanked me into the car, leaning halfway over my lap as he said with feigned sincerity, "Auntie, if Hazel ever considers entering the entertainment industry, she can contact me." After a pause, he deliberately slowed his tone. "After all, I think she's exceptionally gifted." Mom froze, her empty hand clenching into a fist, offering no reply. I glanced up at her briefly before looking away, waving dismissively with my head lowered. "We're leaving, Mom." As if comforted by that single word Mom, she managed to force a faint smile and waved back at me. "All right." The car door closed, the window shielding the heartbreak in her eyes. I finally let out a sigh of relief. This belated realization had come too late. Since childhood, Hazel had played this role too many times, just like today. From what age could a child, no matter how cunning, possibly maintain a flawless act indefinitely? It was simply that parents' hearts had been biased from the start, so too were their eyes and ears, seeing and hearing only what they wished to see and hear. So they would repeatedly ignore my pleas for help, focusing solely on supporting Hazel, who appeared to be the more fragile victim. Fortunately, it's all in the past now. And luckily, I stopped caring long ago. Back at Caleb's place, I originally planned to catch up on sleep. Last night, a minor incident occurred. My father couldn't wait even a single day. The moment he confirmed my engagement to Caleb was genuine. He immediately called, insisting I bring Caleb home for dinner the very next day. Though framed as a meal, everyone knew exactly what calculations were being made behind that invitation. Wanting to avoid ruining my appetite at the dining table, I dragged Caleb over first thing in the morning, hoping to skip the lunch affair altogether. Fortunately, Hazel didn't disappoint me and gave me a helping hand, allowing us to slip away early. The spring scenery outside was just perfect, ideal for taking a nap. Just as I was about to lie down by the bed, a restless figure approached. "Sleepy?" Muffled under the covers, my voice came out just as muffled, hum. The next moment, the mattress dipped beside me as Caleb reached out and pulled me into his arms. Forced out from under the blanket, my vision shifted, revealing a flawlessly handsome face mere inches from mine. "You're not going to back out on yesterday's bet, are you?" "The bet?" "The one about my parents' patience with their golden son-in-law." I'd boasted they could wait a week, but remembering what I'd promised, my ears burned uncontrollably. Is this really appropriate to discuss in broad daylight? Caleb narrowed his eyes, his tone deceptively light yet laced with threat. "You're not planning to renege, are you?" Of course the remaining no was swallowed by Caleb's lips as he cupped the back of my neck. I've never been able to withstand Caleb's kisses. When he finally released me, I had tears welling up at the corners of my eyes from oxygen deprivation. "I'm sleepy, really sleepy." Caleb pressed close again, lightly sucking my lower lip. "I'll nap with you." Still catching my breath, I pushed him away with effort. "Go over there." Yielding to the force, Caleb lay down beside me with a soft sigh. "Sleep now. You'll need to be well rested, for the show." 3 days later, Christopher announced he would hold a belated engagement party with Hazel, even sending an invitation to Caleb. Caleb slapped the invitation into my hand and raised an eyebrow teasingly. "Let's go, watch the show." So this was the show he meant. I smiled as I took it. This should be quite entertaining indeed. The Maybach stopped outside the banquet hall. Caleb got out, rounded the car, and opened the door for me. I extended my arm to link with his as we entered together. This engagement party was grander, the venue expanded, more effort invested, with numerous media outlets invited. Glancing around, I remarked wistfully, "True love indeed. They've put far more thought into this than they did for mine." Caleb scanned the scene and curled his lips. "Does this even count as effort?" I chuckled along, coaxing him, "Just so." The venue was truly crowded, with many young scions of wealthy families and suited-up CEOs gathering in small groups to drink and chat. There were even plenty of meticulously dressed, dazzling celebrities and influencers. However, most of these people couldn't be invited just because someone said so. I was a bit puzzled. Could it be that they'd been up to something lately that I wasn't aware of? Fortunately, my confusion was soon resolved. Ever since Caleb and I entered the venue, we gradually attracted most of the attention from the gathered crowd. Not far away, people were already swaying their wine glasses, eager to come over and strike up a conversation with Caleb. I patted Caleb's arm. "Seems like we're basking in your spotlight tonight." Caleb had wealth, looks, and background, and undisputed crown prince status. During his rise to fame in City A over the years, he had remained clean-cut with zero scandals and never showed enthusiasm for attending any banquets. Now suddenly an unexplained fiancé popped out of nowhere. Naturally everyone was curious. Upon learning it was me, Hazel, as my only blood-related sister, was getting engaged. By all logic, I absolutely had to make an appearance. So these people were all gambling on the slim chance. What if I'd brought Caleb along? This might be one of the few opportunities they'd have to get close to him. Not far away, Christopher emerged from the crowd, holding a wine glass which he raised toward us from a distance, beaming radiantly. "Aria, Caleb." A waiter approached with 2 glasses of wine. I took one and, giving him some face as the host, raised mine in return. "Cheers." As for what exactly we were toasting, that was another matter entirely. Christopher didn't seem bothered by Caleb ignoring him either, nodding slightly as he took a sip from his glass before turning back to mingle with the crowd. I found a table to set down my wine glass. Turning around, I saw Caleb surrounded by several CEOs who seemed familiar with him. Never a moment's peace. I retreated to a corner, trying hard to ignore that pair of eyes glaring at me from not far away. I casually swirled my wine glass, nibbled on petit fours, and took occasional sips. Seeing that nearly all the guests had arrived, I released my hold on the glass and slumped onto the table, pretending to be fast asleep. Just as expected, the person who'd been watching me couldn't hold back any longer and approached to support me. Arya? Arya? Are you all right? Let me help you upstairs to rest. With my eyes closed, I let out a silent, cold laugh. It seems the real show is about to begin. The maid led me to the room, gently stripped off all my clothes, considerately covered half my body with a blanket, then closed the door and left. When all movement had ceased, I sat up from the bed, groped in the dark to pick up the dress by the bedside and put it on. The room was pitch dark and silent, my phone had been taken away by the maid earlier. I struggled to adjust to the darkness, pacing around the room. It was impeccably clean and tidy, without even a wardrobe, nowhere to hide. The only exit, the main door, was likely impassable. Giving up hiding, I sat on the sofa by the window, rubbing my sore shoulders. What kind of surprise do you think she has for me? A faint electronic static came from the left earring. Then Caleb's icy voice emerged from it. You can look forward to it. After all, she won't show you the slightest mercy. I got up, walked to the bed, grabbed the blanket, and returned to the sofa, wrapping myself in it. That's truly a heartbreaking conclusion. Caleb snorted. Yeah, so heartbreaking it's almost laughable. I smiled but didn't respond. I was genuinely looking forward to what surprise Hazel had in store for me today. When movement came from the doorway, I unconsciously clenched the sheets and turned my gaze toward the sound. The door slowly creaked open, the hallway light now glaringly bright, forcing me to squint. In my blurred vision, two figures slipped inside, followed by a rustling noise. The newcomers seemed to be taking off their clothes. A hoarse male voice urged, "Hurry up, we'll leave right after we're done." Another, deeper male voice, both flustered and anxious, replied, I know. The two of them didn't turn on the light. I faintly caught sight of their figures groping their way toward the bed. I curled up on the sofa, burying myself deeper under the blanket. I counted silently in my mind. The two of them fumbled around on the bed but found no one. Wait. Where is she? She's not here. They said she'd be in bed. Turn on the light and see. I continued the countdown. Time's up. The door swung open, and light flooded the room. I instantly pulled the blanket over my eyes, afraid I might see something I shouldn't. After the sharp click of a switch, Caleb's voice was ice cold. Well, taking some nude art photos here, are we? The two men in the room were dragged to the doorway by Caleb's people. I was peeled out from under the blankets by Caleb and carried horizontally out of the room. Two men who had just put on waiter uniforms were kneeling at the door, one of them with a small camera hanging around his neck. I averted my gaze and asked Caleb to put me down. Who sent you here? The two exchanged glances for a few seconds before speaking decisively. Hazel hired us to take some compromising photos of you. She specifically demanded your full face be visible. We were just doing our job for money. Could you and Caleb possibly? I smiled politely and turned to leave. Caleb, call the police. For the past 20 years, Hazel had grown accustomed to lording over me. That day when I returned home, I made her suffer such a humiliating defeat that she even moved out that very night. There was no way she'd resign herself to doing nothing and let me off unscathed. Just as expected, she showed me no courtesy whatsoever. The wedding banquet downstairs had already begun, the atmosphere growing increasingly lively. The large screen at the end of the runway was playing a montage of Christopher and Hazel's childhood memories. In so many of those scenes, I had been present too. Some of those photos were even taken during the period when Christopher was pursuing me. I don't know when or under what excuse Hazel managed to take these photos with him. Now they serve as their exclusive sweet memories. How amusing. In the corner beside the stage, the pianist was immersed in playing the wedding march from a dream, enveloping the blessings of everyone present and filling the entire hall. Caleb followed behind me, wrapping his arms around me. She would probably love your return gift. I looked down at Hazel, beaming with joy, and sighed softly. I originally didn't want to give it away. What a pity my sister is so naive, walking blindly down a single path without ever leaving herself a way out. Perhaps it's my indulgence over these years that has made her so foolish. On the large screen, the slideshow had reached the photos of their engagement shoot. The MC gestured for Hazel and Christopher to come on stage. Arm in arm, they walked forward, exchanged a smile, then turned to face the crowd, just about to speak. From the speakers flanking the large screen, the recording of my earlier conversation with Caleb played perfectly timed. The screen remained dark, but the audio from both sides came through crystal clear. It was from earlier, when I'd whispered to the surveillance device hidden in my earrings, "Tell me, Caleb, what kind of surprise do you think she has for me?" Until the end, it was the two sentences spoken by the man who looked like a waiter. "It was Hazel who asked us to take photos of you with another man, specifically demanding your full face be visible. We were just doing a paid job. Could you and Caleb please?" On stage, Hazel turned pale. She tugged at Christopher, demanding the large screen be turned off. "Who's in charge of this? Shut it down. What is this? Turn everything off now." But it was already too late. The people Caleb had brought in had blocked those heading to the projection room. The large screen continued playing. The scene changed. This time it was my room, where I was alone packing my things when Hazel walked in holding a coffee cup. The same cup that had shattered days ago broke into pieces again. The video ended abruptly as I approached the camera once more, leaving the entire audience in an uproar. Hazel had collapsed to her knees, tears streaming down her face, with Christopher holding her while half-kneeling beside her, his expression utterly stunned. I released the railing and leaned back into Caleb's arms. I almost forgot, what happens in the next video? The screen darkened again at my words, and 3 seconds later, Hazel's voice emerged before the image. "I really loved this trophy, Aria." The image gradually came into focus, showing a noticeably younger Hazel, several years her junior, carefully examining a crystal trophy. Anyone with decent eyesight could clearly see the winner's name engraved on it, Aria. That was my trophy. In the video, I sat on the sofa in one corner of the living room, ignoring Hazel. Unconcerned whether I minded or not, she deliberately dropped the trophy at her feet and exclaimed, "I'm sorry, Aria. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have said anything. Please don't be angry." Then my parents appeared, shielding Hazel protectively. Hazel pretended to be soft-hearted as she defended me. "Don't blame Aria. It was my fault for being curious about this trophy. Aria didn't mean to throw it at me. Mom, Dad, please don't be angry." Her dissuasion only added fuel to the fire. My mother pointed at me, looking exasperated and disappointed. "How could I have given birth to a daughter like you? She's your own sister." The scene on the screen continued unabated. The media in the banquet hall could no longer contain themselves and had already begun live broadcasting, cameras flashing incessantly. Guests who had originally surrounded the protagonist now retreated 3 paces away. My God, are they really sisters? My God, are these my biological parents? You can know a person's face but not their heart. Does Christopher really seem to know nothing? A half-bed partner, how could he possibly know nothing? Didn't Christopher get engaged to Aria before? Then they suddenly switched to Hazel. Could it be that Hazel is jealous of her younger sister, to the point of even stealing her fiancé? The more you think about it, the more horrifying it becomes. The murmurs gradually drowned out one of the main figures in the video. What was supposed to be a warm and joyous engagement banquet had suddenly transformed into a public shaming session for her. Hazel remained seated, frantically clutching Christopher's arm in desperation for him to lead her away from the crowd. But Christopher seemed equally stunned, frozen in place until Hazel shoved him aside in her distress. Seeing that my parents were also surrounded and unable to help, Hazel swayed dramatically, rolled her eyes back, and feigned a fainting spell, as if overwhelmed by the situation. The crowd inside took a few more steps back, afraid she might try to frame someone, and chaos briefly erupted again. Caleb had someone bring a microphone, his well-defined fingers tapping it lightly. Thud, thud, the surrounding speakers projected his deep, pleasant voice for all to hear. Everyone. The people below stopped and looked around, eventually lifting their gazes to lock onto Caleb and me on the second floor. He held the microphone to my lips. I turned my eyes to the large screen and said calmly, "I hope today's show didn't disappoint anyone." After a pause, I turned my gaze to Hazel, who was being helped up. She was determined to pretend to be unconscious, her carefully prepared makeup now completely ruined. I just wonder if it was enough to satisfy my dear sister. My sister, who had been spoiled since childhood, arrogant and naive, was finally shaken awake by Christopher, as if snapping out of her panic. As if she had nothing left to lose, she glared at me fiercely, her voice shrill, "Arya. Is it you? Are you insane? You're forcing me." I finished the rest of her sentence for her. "Forcing you to die?" Hazel froze in place, as if she couldn't comprehend my words. "What?" I chuckled lightly, genuinely happy. "Isn't this exactly what you loved telling me most over the past 20 years? Countless times in the past, after I received honors, Hazel would avoid our parents and gently take my hand. I'm so envious of you, Arya. You're healthy and vibrant, with so many wonderful memories, and you work so hard to earn honors. It truly makes me happy for you. But Arya, we're both mom's daughters. Why do you get to be healthy and happy, have everything you want, while I'm stuck at home, forbidden from doing this or that? I'm really, so miserable." She would smash the trophies and awards I worked so hard to earn, tearing them apart. Then lie sprawled amidst the wreckage. "You're so outstanding, you've taken everything from me. You make it seem like my very existence was a mistake. You're always pushing me toward death, Arya." Yet her threats remained just words. She treated me not as a sister, but as an enemy. Perhaps she truly wished for my death, or better yet, that I'd never been born at all. I sighed, "Hazel, oh Hazel, with your own behavior like this, what makes you think I'd be any kind of good sister?" There were moments when I couldn't help but imagine a sharp piece of glass smoothly gliding across Hazel's neck. At the edge of the venue, the live broadcast continued. Swallowing some ill-timed words, I paused before saying, "After all, this is my sister's engagement banquet." Just then, Caleb's secretary approached my parents with a box in hand. Softening my tone, I added, I had actually prepared a different gift originally. The box opened, revealing a property deed for a villa and a gift contract inside. Someone with a keen eye exclaimed in awe, "Is that the seaside villa?" Exactly, the seaside villa, a property that money can't buy and power alone can't guarantee a residence in. Arya is incredibly generous. Just as my father's eyes lit up and he reached out to take it, the box was closed. I smiled slightly and said apologetically, "This was originally meant to be a gift. Unfortunately, it can only serve as an apology now. These belong to you." I handed the box to my father's secretary. My mother was in tears, though I didn't notice when she started crying, "Arya." I ignored the pain and pity in her eyes, withdrew my gaze, and turned to Hazel, who had lost control of her expression. Just like when we were children, I sincerely apologized to her, "Sister, I'm sorry. A situation like this won't happen again. In the past, I apologized because I was young, valued our sisterhood, and chose to give up my own glory to protect her sensitive and fragile heart. Now, I apologize because I have genuinely destroyed what she called the happiness she pursued all her life. The entanglement between her and me ends here." The engagement party ended bleakly. Caleb and I made headlines again. The suppressed content from the last engagement party was also dug up, though the tone of the coverage was a bit strange. That line, "What kind of good little sister would I be anyway?" just cleared my blocked milk ducts. Evidence in hand, lethal strike, this is peak wish fulfillment fiction. Am I the only one noticing Caleb's utterly indulgent expression? She acts up, he smiles, perfection. OMG, I totally agree. My parents called me countless times, but I ignored every single one. It was only when the police came to investigate the photo incident that I encountered someone unpleasant again. Christopher looked utterly dejected. After the engagement banquet, my father's company had gone into a nosedive, and Christopher's family inevitably got caught up in the fallout. He really should be depressed, after all, he was never the hard-working, capable type to begin with. Hazel is in the hospital, I raised my hand in a stop gesture, ready to slam the door shut. Enough. Leave. The door was blocked by Christopher. Arya, I didn't mean to. On the day of the college entrance exam, I originally wanted to confess to you. I was drunk, I don't know why it was Hazel. Behind the door, I refused to even look at him, so it was because of that sentence. Enough, Christopher. Not to mention how many times you've been fooling around these past few years. I drew out my words. Have you never wondered why it was Hazel who went to see you that night? Christopher forced the door open with strength, staring at me in disbelief. What do you mean by that? I took 2 steps back and sneered. The aphrodisiac in your glass was put there by someone I hired. The text asking me out was deliberately shown to Hazel by me. Even the room where you two hooked up was prepared by me for you. Why? We were engaged, I raised my hand again, shaking it to clearly express my displeasure. Why can't you understand human speech? It's really troubling me. Why have you always clung to me since childhood? Christopher froze in place once more. Countless instances from our youth, my constant dodging, my repeated rejections, flashed before his eyes. He looked so heartbroken it seemed he might shatter. I like you so much. What does that have to do with me? I scoffed coldly. Haven't you realized yet? I've always loathed you. There was never even a shred of affection, just thinking about having to marry you in the future used to keep me up at night. Being forced to stay by his side as Christopher's fiancé since childhood, constantly pestered by him, those were truly the worst years of my life. I'm just returning you to Hazel, as I said before. May you two lovebirds live happily ever after. After the wedding banquet, my parents completely severed ties with Christopher's family, and the engagement collapsed entirely. To avoid being dragged down, Christopher's conglomerate completely cut off from my father's corporation. Fortunately, they withdrew just in time, so Christopher's family suffered minimal damage. The already corruption-ridden corporation collapsed overnight. My parents vanished from public view. Hazel was diagnosed with mild delusional disorder and severe depression, remaining at a sanatorium in the suburbs of City A. Caleb brought back both gifts he had presented at the banquet that day completely intact. My father's company was acquired by Caleb. Burdened with astronomical compensations and left with no options, they had no choice but to mortgage the villa I had gifted them. The debt of parental nurture is hard to repay, the bond of sisterhood hard to sever. This was the only gift I gave them. And also, the last retreat I offered. After settling past accounts, I finally had some free time. Unexpectedly, invitations from various wealthy families started pouring in, inviting me for outings. But everyone knew the real intention wasn't just for fun, what they truly valued was the man standing behind me. Fortunately, Caleb turned them all down for me and took me back to the old family residence. Inside Caleb's home, on a sofa of muted colors, a silver-haired elderly lady glared at me angrily. Oh my, who is this girl? I don't recognize her. After saying that, she tapped her cup on the table and turned her head away from me. I quickly went over, linking my arm with hers. Grandma, I'm Arya. Take another look at me, I don't believe your eyes see nothing. Who is Arya? Never heard of her. Caleb's grandmother snorted, still refusing to look at me. I moved to her other side, hugging her while continuing to wheedle. You can't not know me, Grandma said you liked me best. Don't be mad, I've been busy dealing with some annoying people these days. I finally found some free time now and will spend more time with you later. Hearing my explanation, Grandma Caleb affectionately took my hand in hers, turning her head to glare at Caleb. When Arya was in trouble, you didn't even bother to help and look after her. Caleb spread his hands and plopped down onto the single sofa beside them, like she needed my help. Just as Caleb's father came downstairs, even in casual home clothes, he couldn't conceal his imposing righteousness, like an ancient sword with its edge sheathed. Though looking down from above, his eyes were gentle, and his tone carried a playful note. Arya has been quite the sensation lately. That rascal might not even be of much help. I looked up and smiled shyly, feeling a bit embarrassed. Uncle, you're here too. Your aunt heard you were coming and had me bring her over first thing in the morning. Caleb's mother, elegant in a simple dress, followed behind his father down the stairs, her tone warm. It's me. I was thinking we could have a family meal together. Arya can come with me to look at wedding dresses too. Upon hearing this, Caleb's grandmother gently patted my head and said, "How time flies. The little girl has grown into a young lady now." I swayed my head slightly with the motion of her hand and sighed nostalgically. Yeah. 10 years had already passed since I first met Caleb at 15. Compared to that gloomy home of mine, Caleb's family felt more like my real home. On the day of my engagement party with Caleb, everything Caleb had secretly prepared with such care was finally revealed before me. Holding up my dress, I pushed open the door. No hall full of guests, no media entourage. White roses transported from around the world carpeted the entire venue, and at the end of the red carpet on the stage stood only our families. Caleb's mother leaned against his father's side, holding a small gift box. With a kind and gentle voice that carried on the wind across the space, Caleb's grandmother spoke into the microphone. Arya. Welcome home. Caleb led me forward, guiding me to receive the box from his mother's hands. As we opened it, a jade bracelet, warm to the touch and emerald green throughout, slid onto my wrist. Arya. Welcome home. Tears fell from my eyes, and for a moment I found it hard to speak. How fortunate I was to have known and befriended Caleb in my youth. 10 years have passed, and the dust has settled.